welcome to another challenge from Everyday Moodlings. I'm your host this week, Jury Parks, and we are going to be working on an artist trading card this week. And our challenge is a matte and or glossy. So choosing to use either something that's matte, has a matte finish on your project, or a glossy finish, or in the case of my ATC, we're going to use both. And what I want to focus on today is matte paint. That has become very popular the last few years. In fact, I did a whole big review on matte paint, and I'm going to add that into the blog post. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the description to the blog where you can go and check out the blog post and learn more about matte paint. There are several different ones on the market. Dick Blick makes their own matte paint. Liquitex makes a matte paint. Dilutions just came out with a matte paint. And she has a lot of colors, very bright, very vibrant, very fun. Do like her paint. And then Americana Decor has a chalky finish matte paint, which I actually really love, and that's what I'm going to be using today along with some other supplies. I do like Dick Blick and Liquitex and Dilution. I like Dilution specifically because the colors are so beautiful and they work so well with the rest of her line. But my favorite matte paint is this one by Americana Decor. It's a little harder to find. Michaels was carrying them in the smaller tubes. They also have a bigger one because it's meant for painting furniture, a matte paint. But it works great on paper crafts as well. So this is really my favorite, and I found it to be the most versatile. It also comes with a white and a black. And you can use, particularly the white, you can use both of them as like a wash over the other colors. So then you have three colors rather than just the green. I could put the white. We're going to use green and white today. Or I can wash it with the black as well. So fun there. The reason I started testing them out to begin with was because the Dilutions paint had come out and there was so much talk about it. I wanted to see what else was on the market. She talked about being able to layer more things over the top of it because it's matte, so it's got a little bit of porousness to it rather than a glossy finish or a satin finish paint, where really about the only thing you can use on top of that kind of paint is a Sharpie or stays on ink or something that's permanent. With the chalk inks you can use more different kinds of pens, like we're going to be using the Faber-Castell pen, which would not work on top of glossy paint. So now, like I said in the matte paint video, I did a testing of all of them and things you could do with them, so be sure to check that out if you want to know more about matte paint, but this one's my favorite. Now I'm doing an ATC today, and I've mentioned on the blog in the last few months, my ATCs have kind of transitioned from, you know, fun techniques, I want to use this product or I want to use that product, to more telling a story of what's going on in my life right now. So just a little background on this one. We had a bit of a health scare with my son. I have a 13-year-old son over the last couple of weeks. He is fine, but that was kind of the inspiration for this particular ATC, and it really influenced the colors. And I know we talked about color choices, so this kind of ties in with that. His favorite color is purple. Of course, he's a, you know, middle school, intermediate school, whatever you call it, junior high in your part of the world. They all love purple, right? It's like a perfect color that's not really specific to boys or girls. It's, yeah, a lot of people like purple at that age. So his favorite color is purple, which is going to be the background. We're actually going to do a three-dimensional piece today where we cut a frame out with one layer and use some pop dots to kind of create almost like a shaker box, but not quite, because I'm not going to enclose it. So that's going to be my background. So then from that, I picked the green paint because that goes with the purple background. So you might think hearts and think, oh, I got to do red, but because we're going to be using a heart as well today. But sometimes you can mix it up a little bit, but I know green and red really go together well. So that's why I chose that color combination. We started with the purple. Then for the glossy, we're going to work with some embossing powder over the top of my red heart to kind of give it a very glossy enamel look. And then I have my sentiment already, which is today my heart is free. And we're going to be using some old, oh my gosh, I've had these in my stash forever, metal letters to spell out the word free. Can't quite see that there. There. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started first with my paint. Along the way, if I need to stop and break in and give some tips, I will. Although this is a kind of a straightforward one. When we get to the embossing piece, I will give you a few more tips on it. Okay, so I've started getting my top layer done. I'm not going to do much more painting to it, but now I need it to dry really well before we start on the next steps on this. So until then, we are going to work on the heart. And we are going to be doing some embossing with it. Now I've already, this is chipboard, matte board, whatever you want to call it, and an old Sussex die. This was one of their original releases. It's the Primitive Heart. It's one of my favorites. It was white to start with, and I just used a little stain on it. This is Lindy Stamp Gang. It's a two-tone, so it's got kind of a glimmer, shimmeriness to it. And we are going to be using some ultra thick embossing enamel to give it a nice glossy finish. But we are also going to be sprinkling in a little extra sparkliness with some red and gold glitter embossing powder as well. So because I want to work on the entire piece here, I do not want to have to hold my heart. I can't really hold it even with the tweezers. I want to be able to go ahead and cover the entire surface. And we're going to be working with a clear embossing powder. This is Distress. And I'm just going to be working on a piece of scratch paper to kind of catch stuff. I do have a tray as well, but I typically only use that for black because I never seem to be able to get it completely clean so I don't want to mix clear in there and have it cross-contaminated. So we're going to be doing multiple layers here, which works really well with UT or ultra thick embossing powder because you can melt it over and over and over again. Not all embossing powders like that very much, so. Now I'm just going to go ahead and heat set this. I'll be right back. Okay, so we got that melted the first time, and there's a lot of dimpling in it because we need to do at least 3 layers to not have a nice glossy enamel effect. Couple of tips here with UT. Because it's a large granule embossing powder, it's really easy to blow it around, so make sure that your heat gun is really hot and you kind of hold it a little distance away until it starts to melt, and then you can move in closer. Now it says on the container that while it's still hot, you can press it back down into the embossing powder. I have never gotten that to work, so I just always come back over with more embossing ink. Now I said I wanted to mix in a little bit of this as well, so I'm just going to sprinkle it over the top. So now I've kind of contaminated what I got here, so I won't be able to put it back in, which is fine. I'll just work with the leftovers here. And then I'm going to reheat set this. Okay, you can start to see some of the flecks in there. Hopefully that'll come in well on the camera. We're going to do it a third time to get a really nice, good coat. Now, in between these coats of embossing ink that I'm putting in here, you do want to make sure that it's good and dry before you pounce into it like that. And again, I'm going to put a little bit more. What I'm doing is I'm suspending the that glittery embossing powder into the UT itself. So you get a really multi-layered, multi-dimensional look with it. So this will be our last time. I'll go ahead and heat set that again. You could also use just regular glitter and it'll suspend itself in there. Okay, so there's our glossy heart. Needs to dry just a little bit more. Usually 3 coats is enough for me to get a, sorry about that, nice solid surface on it. You can go up to 5 if you're having a hard time, if you've missed some areas, but hopefully you can see in the camera there the little bits of the other embossing powder that are suspended in there. But you'll definitely be able to see it in the still photos in the blog post. Now, like I said, this is pretty contaminated, so I won't be keeping that. I could have worked on 2 different sheets of paper and then I wouldn't have had that problem. Or I could keep it in a separate container and use it as is, but I'm not going to worry about that today. Okay, so I got to cut a frame in this one. And I'm going to be using a Spellbinder's die. I do want to do a little work around my 2 layers of paint here. Now I am keeping this a little more whimsical on purpose. It's part of my overall feeling for the ATC because it has to do with my son. So we're going to go ahead and sit this on top of here. Tape it down. That's why you want your paint to be really, really dry. Otherwise things are going to stick while you're running it through your die cut machine. So I'm going to cut this and I'll be right back to finish up my ATC. Okay, so I have my frame and I'm going to go ahead and layer it over the purple. Now I find it easiest if I make the layer behind it slightly smaller so that it just makes it easier to line everything up. And I'm going to be using just some foam dots along the way here to give my frame some dimension. Then I'll just be adding in the heart and my sentiment. ACT all done, and I did keep it, like I said, more whimsical, so I didn't care too much if I cut these out perfectly. My lines aren't straight, it's fine. The little pieces down here aren't quite fine, but that just goes with the whimsical feel to it. So that's our ATC for today. You could obviously do a tag or a card or whatever it is you want to do for the challenge. Just focus on something either matte or glossy. I used embossing powder or ultra thick embossing enamel for my glossy piece. There are lots of other items you could use for glossy. You could use any art medium that has a gloss finish. You could use acrylic. Lots of different options there, and I combine that by using matte paint. If you have any questions about anything I did here, please be sure to let me know. I'm always happy to help, and I'll see you next week for a brand new challenge.